Welcome, everybody. This is Daniel, the Mediocre Ranger, and today with me from the Durin Show, I've got Mitchell.
Hey, how's it going?
So we're going to be talking about how to win with thematic armies, not just power gaming, but having story in the armies that you build. But first, we're going to have a battle report in there. And even before that, I want to get to know my guest today a little bit better. So Mitchell, would you start us off with how did you get into this hobby?
Oh, that's a long time. We passed our, I think we're at or very close to our 20-year mark for getting into the hobby. Me and my brother Marcus, we started, I want to say either 2003 or 2004. So
Yeah.
we're very, very close.
So is that even before Return of the King came out?
No, it was after Return of the King. Okay. And when the rule set, though, I do remember when we first started, the rule set was still the Two Towers rule. So it was the red book, not the blue book. They commonly referred it to the blue book when the Return of the King book came out. So it was right at that transition is when we started. There was a Games Workshop at the mall. A couple of our friends found it, and then they brought it over to our house, and we're like, oh yeah, we're all over this. And so we went to that. We started going to that Games Workshop. We started collecting and we started playing. And like I said, that was right when Return of the King just came out, so they just updated the new rule book. And then it went on, and we just kept going back and back. And each edition that came out, we hit a little bit of a lull. I'm in Washington State in the U.S. and our gaming community was pretty big, especially around 06. 06, I remember, was like the peak at that time. And it started dying down a little bit towards the end of 2009 because people were growing up. You know, Marcus went off to college. You know, I was in high school and stuff like that, I think. And we're just about to start it. And, you know, there was less and less people. It was harder to find games. The Hobbit movies came out and they did the Hobbit edition. I did not play that edition. Every time I did play, I just kept playing the One Ring book because I didn't know anybody who did play. It was usually just me and Marcus anyways. And then we did play War of the Ring. War of the Ring was a different type of game system that came out at the same time. And that was fun because we got to use like all our models, even though the rule system was kind of broken. It was fun because we have quite a collection between the two of us. So that was fun. But really, when the new edition for right now that we're playing in 2018 came out, it was funny. Just everything sparked. Like just before it came out, I don't know if it was the hype of it coming out, but all of a sudden people started popping up all over Washington State. I found a couple of now how Marcus and I know him today is we all kind of started the Seattle group. So it's the core 6 or whatever. And it's funny because they're like, oh, I thought I was the only one, as you meet more and more people. And we started the Facebook page, and then everybody started flocking to the Facebook page. And, now it's the biggest I've ever seen it, honestly, especially on the West Coast, because you got up in BC, you've got the Canadians up there. You've got the Washington State, where a good solid amount of players that play pretty consistently. I'm very happy about that. And not just on Western Washington, but Eastern Washington now too, which is great. And then Oregon has started just blowing up too. Pat, has grown quite a good community down there, I think. And, I now get to meet you too. It's another part of the group. So welcome to the West Coast.
Yeah. Awesome. I wonder if it's just a West Coast of the Americas thing, but how critical do you think is having a brother to, surviving in this hobby through the years when there aren't a lot of players around? It seems like that's almost a requirement for
It kind of seems like that. It's funny. There's quite a lot of siblings on the West Coast. And I don't know why that happens, if it just sparks a lot of competitiveness or just play between the two or common interests. I don't know. But we roped our brother Matt in with the new edition. He's been like all in from the get-go. And you got obviously the Lacton brothers up in Canada. You have the Lynn brothers up in Canada. You have the Hammond brothers in Washington. You have the Morris brothers, down in Oregon. Like it's kind of funny, but it's very, very cool. I think it's been quite fun to just go, throw down a gauntlet and say, okay, who's going to survive?
Totally. Yeah. Oh, and even just having multiple armies to start with, if you've got multiple people You're always playing each other, and then you get sick of those armies and want to buy more. That helps early on for sure.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes, it absolutely does. Yep, it does.
I know for me, I don't have any brothers, but my brothers-in-law kept me going. And so, that was the two people I've played the most are both brother-in-laws. And so that kept me going on the early days too. And that's just it's a funny little piece of the puzzle of this hobby.
It just makes sense. I mean, you have a lot in common. You get along. You kind of just bring out the best in each other. And the other thing too that I found is, especially like with my two other brothers, we like to travel to a lot of different tournaments. If I'm having a bad day and I'm not doing very well, I can live vicariously through my brothers who are doing amazing and be like, yeah, I practice with them. They are who they are today because of me. I may not be doing well, but their success is due to me. No, not really, but I get to claim that at least. So that's kind of builds it up even more.
Yeah, that's been one of my favorite parts of listening to the Durin show is how you guys just relate to each other through a tournament recap of I carried the banner for a while and then I had a major loss and handed it off and you took a win.
Exactly. Yeah. Someone else took the baton and ran with it. Yep. Exactly.
That's great.
Yep.
Well, it's time for some questions. Your direction. This is the lightning round. So rules are fast reaction, whatever. And here we go. You ready?
Okay. Yep. Let's do it.
You have been added to the Order of the Astari. What color will you add to your name, including those already used, such as Gandalf the Grey? Henceforth, you will be known as Mitchell the...
Ooh, either green or orange. And that has strictly to do with Star Wars lightsaber colors. But yeah.
Perfect. All right. Next, you must ride a wild warg for 10 miles. Would you rather use a saddle or hold on to its fur?
Oh, definitely a saddle for 10 miles, especially because I'm not broken. I haven't ridden a horse in years. So I definitely cannot do that bareback. Yeah, no.
Perfect. Would you rather command to Saruman or the Balrog?
Sorry, say that again. Kind of cut out a little bit.
Sure. Would you rather be second in command to Saruman or the Balrog?
Oh, Balrog for sure. I mean,
why is that?
Because Balrog in power level is basically on par with Sauron. So Saruman's just kind of a little weakling compared to a Balrog, who's one of the Maiar that forged a huge Dark Lord with Morgoth and everything. So kind of weak in comparison. Yeah, I'm going with the power guy. Big deal. The one that everybody trembles in front of, not just Saruman.
It's good. It's good. All right. The mouth of Sauron and the eye of Sauron are already taken. Sauron, which part are you?
That's an interesting question. Very interesting. I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe like the hand of Sauron or something like that actually does all his biddings or something cheesy as an answer.
That's good. All right. If you could be one hero in Middle-earth SPG, who would you be?
In the game specifically or in the lore?
Game specifically.
Durin. I have to. I'm sorry. It'd be Durin. Hands down.
Durin.
Yeah, he's my favorite.
Oh.
Yeah.
So why? What do you like? What stands out about Durin?
When he was released back in I think the expansion came out in 2006 for Cause of Doom, and that's when the Durin profile was first released. At the time, I was only playing with old Day and Ironfoot and Balin, and he just stood head and toes. It was so awesome to get really fighty hero, fight 6, 3 attacks, and now in the new rules, he's just so baller. He's got the axe. Obviously, he's got the Fury saves. That's been there since he came out, but now he's got the Fearless. He gets the Hearthguard. I mean, he's just I'm the best axeman in Cause of Doom, and I take on a Balrog, so it's very fun.
That's who you want if you have to take on the Balrog for sure.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, he died, so maybe someone who won, but yeah.
Same thing with Gilgalad, though. I'd take him to take on Sauron, and who else is going to do better?
That's cool.
Okay, if what's your favorite piece of war gear in the game?
Ooh. I'm a huge fan of drums.
Yeah.
Drums are, if anytime an army has access to a drum, I'll probably put it in there.
Yeah.
They're the hidden gem in every single army that everybody seems to overlook. But as soon as you start playing them, they're like, man, I kind of overlooked that a little bit. So they're the big difference.
Yeah. Good. Okay, now your favorite war gear costing 1 or 2 points.
Throwing spears.
Oh,
Rohan throwing spears specifically.
No, the Warg Rider ones aren't your favorite.
Yeah. No.
Okay, you never have to play one faction again. Which faction do you choose to play against them?
Oh, never have to play against it again?
Yeah.
Assault on Lothlorien, probably. Yeah, I dislike Assault on Lothlorien. Not because it's unbeatable. It just seems like this is kind of a boring, like. Sorry, excuse me. We know how this game's going to go. It's just going to be a grind, and either you're going to be upset or I am. It's never going to be like both of us are like, oh, that was it. No, I joke, but I did have a game like that this year at Vegas, and it was against the guy who won LVO, and Jake. He's down in California, but he had Assault on Lothlorien, and actually I had Fell Beings, so it was the two spider and orc armies against each other, and that was actually a really fun game. So I'm not going to harp on it too much, but it is kind of one of those lists. Like, oh, I give people a really hard time. Like, you're one of those people, you know?
Yeah, that's fair. That's warranted, I think, at this point. Okay, you write one profile. Which one would you most want to change the rules for?
Ooh. That is a very, very good question. Like, because I hate it or because I want to make it better?
Your choice, and that might be the same for that same character.
I really dislike the Watcher in the Water. I don't think I'd actually change it. I think if I was going to use it to change, I'd probably change it to make something better. Yeah. Watcher is a good one. There was another one that I played, and I'm like, see, I've got to think about it for a second. I guess to make something better, let's go on the positive a little bit. I am really wondering why Celeborn is one defense lower than all the other Lords of the West. Like, I don't even want to give Celeborn a horse. I really don't. I'm all against that. I'm on the bandwagon of Celeborn doesn't need a horse.
So is he 7 with the shield?
Yes. Whereas all the other Lords of the West are defense 7 without a shield.
Glorfindel doesn't have the shield, but he's
and neither does Elrond. And then Gilgalad can get a shield and goes up to defense 8. So Celeborn is 1 defense lower. That's the only thing that
Just another slight to him.
Yeah, but I don't even want to give him a horse. I just want to give him +1 defense. Okay. Dane Ironfoot also needs to, on the boar, needs to be like 10 or 20 points more expensive. So that's also change. But anyways, I'm going on a rant.
That's good. Okay, you can only play as 4 factions for the rest of your gaming career. Which 4 factions are you going to play?
Khand, Khazad-dûm, I guess Fell Beings. I really have been enjoying Fell Beings. And I got pretty burnt out on Rohan, so it's hard for me to answer. Normally it would be Rohan, but I played it so much in the last couple of years, I'm kind of burnt out on it. So I'll probably lean. So definitely Khand, definitely Khazad-dûm. definitely fell beings, and I gotta look at what I got.
Yeah.
Let's throw Earl the Young in there. So that is a kind of combo army. It's kind of 2-in-1. So it's Minas Tirith and Rohan, but it's specifically that alliance. So Earl plus a King of Men.
Yeah, that's exciting. I like it. Okay, 2 more questions.
Okay.
If you were a profile, you have a profile in the game, that's you specifically. What useful special rule would you like to have? Mine would be Sorceress Adept from Brorgear. I keep Will that I roll a 6 on for casting. What would your useful rule be?
I'm actually a huge fan of Orphan's special rule, where every natural 6 he rolls gets double strikes. Yeah, that's pretty fun. Or Rumills. Rumills is also pretty frustrating. That's pretty fun.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna test out Orphan. This will. Yeah, no one's gonna see this, and it's gonna matter. I'm gonna take Orphan as my leader to the tournament in Portland in a couple weeks. 250 point Alliance armies. So we test it out.
He's worth it.
And Boone will come in. Yeah, with some other. I'll hold the line, and Boone will smash him. That's our game plan.
Nice.
Okay. Lastly, a little grudge opportunity. You get to choose one opponent, and you set up the scenario. So you choose your faction. You also choose their faction, and you choose which scenario you're going to play. Here's your perfect setup. Who are you playing against? What are your factions and scenario?
There's so many options here. So many grudge matches.
Yeah. Like I have some Condish options or
Yeah. I have a long history. It's funny. Charles and I have played probably 6 or 7 times in a tournament, and every single time it's a Maelstrom, and every single time it's been hold ground except the last one, and it was veto on the last one, and I was like, I'm not doing hold ground again. So we did heirlooms. But it's been funny that, it's always been that. So it's probably be either. I do enjoy playing the Lynn brothers quite a lot. It's fun because most of the time I'm trying to prove something. It never always ends up that way. So I'd probably be one of the Lynn brothers, and I'd probably be playing Fell Beings against whatever their best army is in whatever scenario they say is bad for my army. That's probably what I would be doing.
I love it.
Yep.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Okay, that's the end of the question round. I feel like I know you a little better. Thanks for your responses. That was great.
Of course.
That was great. Okay, do you have a battle report for us? Something from, somewhat fairly recent, and walk us through, tell us the story.
Yeah, well, since you're bringing Orphan, I might as well talk about the last event I did, which was 1,000 points. I did Pure Lothlorien because Into the West, which is the other podcast, they did a ranking on Lothlorien, and I was giving them a hard time. I may have put some words in their mouth, but I was really trying to stir up some banter, and I was like, well, they said it was absolute trash. They said it was terrible. They said it can't win, and they're like, "We didn't say that."
It's my number one faction, personally.
Yeah, and they're like, "We didn't say that," and I was like, "Well, to me, you did, so we're gonna go with it." And so I brought Pure Lothlorien at 1,000 points, and that was pretty fun. I had Gladriel, Celeborn, Orphan, and Haldir. Those are my 4 war bands, and I had just a bunch of elves, some Gladrim Court, some Wood Elves, some Knights. It was quite fun, and that was my most recent games. It did very well. I went 3-0. I goofed up in the end. I'll give my last game. I was playing against a Bjornings in Lothlorien, actually, in the final game, and this was top table. And he had Grimbjorn and 15 Bjornings, and then he had Galadriel and a bunch of elves, and he had an elf captain on horse. and where we vetoed out because we were doing veto, and got down to play reconnoiter. And so I knew he was probably setting up this big battle line with 15 Bjornings in front, and then a bunch of Fight 5 and Fight 6 elves behind, and then Galadriel with some blinding light, and then Grim Bjorn to go wherever and smash things. So I knew whatever possible I had to do, I had to get on the table as fast as possible so I could get up front and set up a good screen to kind of block him wherever he wanted to go, but also position myself that I could escape some things off. I also wanted to get into a position because when I looked at the battlefield, there was a couple of good spots where I could fight and I would have a good advantage, and I didn't want to fight in certain areas. So I actually don't think I had to might. I think I had to burn 1 point of might to get all the war bands on first turn. So I rolled pretty good, which is funny because the last game I played, which was Maelstrom, a battle, I had to burn 6 points of might, and it was rough. But yeah, so it was better that I only had to burn 1 this time, so that was good. I got my whole army on. I kind of set up, and he deployed Grimbjorn and Bjornings and everything right in the middle. Nice little battle line. He kind of spread out a little bit because he wanted to play defense, and he transformed Grimbjorn right away. And what was interesting, and I was telling him this afterwards that I disagree with. So Grimbjorn is better than Bjorn in some areas, mainly the fact that he's not forced to charge anything, because a lot of times you can kind of pull Bjorn out. But Grimbjorn doesn't force to charge. But he still transformed Grimbjorn right away and then ran him ahead of the battle line. So he was still 4 inches ahead of his battle line to when we were getting pretty close. And I think he just mismeasured in his head how close I was. So I threw a command on Grimbjorn with Galadriel, and I think I got a 6. And he decided not to burn any will, just use the resistive magic. And he failed to resist. And I knew that was a mistake instantly because I was able to pull Grimbjorn another 4 inches towards me. So he's like 8 inches away from his battle line. No way he can help Grimbjorn out. And then I was able to get a trap. He didn't think I could get all the way around Grimbjorn, but I was able to get a trap. And I got Haldir and Orphan in there and one punch Grimbjorn. And then after that, it was just he lost his big piece. So it was 1,000 points versus 800 points. He was able to get his captain off, and I got my knight off pretty fast. So it was 1-1 on the recon, but I was just destroying on the kills. And I was a couple of turns away from getting a lot of models off, like probably 10 or more off. And I was zeroing in on Galadriel. He kind of just swarmed everybody around Galadriel to make as many turns as possible to get to her. And then that's where I was starting to get time. So we're about maybe 1 or 2 turns away from being last turn. So I was thinking time. I was like, okay, I just got to end this turn really fast. Next turn, I run some models off. I kill Galadriel, all good. And then the turn ended. He goes, well, I just got quartered by 1 model. And I went, that's a rookie mistake. I quartered him. And I didn't, because it's 1,000 points, to quarter him still is like 12 models or something like that. Or I can't remember what it was, 10 or something like it was, but it's still more models than I'm used to seeing for a quarter. And it was just a rookie mistake. I wasn't paying attention, and I ended the game. So I won 3-0 instead of, 8 or more to 0. Yeah. And I was like, ooh, that's actually kind of rough. Nice play. So it was by 1 model too. So just 1 guy shielding instead of killing. It would have gone on another turn. I would have killed Galadriel, possibly run some guys off, and it would have been fine. So I was getting a little upset about that because I was on top table. It's only a 3-game tournament, so you can easily get leapfrogged. I dropped to second, but luckily my brother was playing on table 2, and he won. So he jumped to first. I was like, okay, well, at least it was Marcus that got first and not, somebody else. So I'm not going to – it's a bad mistake, but, at least it didn't cost me too bad. So.
Wow. Yep. Those little things, it's just there's so many things you remember and you forget one of them, and there go points,
Yep.
There goes first
absolutely.
place.
Yep, absolutely. But that's okay.
Yeah.
Lothlorien still did a good showing. 3-0. It did pretty well, so I was happy.
That's good. Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for sharing that. Let's carry that into a broader discussion on theme in Armies. And here
Mhm.
had some good comments from Ian from Into the West on Facebook that helped me narrow down what I'm thinking about theme. And it's not that I want to recreate an exact scene or an exact moment from the books or the movies. That actually doesn't get me that excited. But
Mhm.
it is that I want my army to be believable. I want it to tell a story. I want it to be
Mhm.
realistic. And I think that word realistic is the heart of what I'm after with this. Of I don't want someone to look at my army and think they just cobbled that together because there's some rules synergy that doesn't make any sense within the
Mhm.
world of Middle Earth. And I even have a pet peeve against, let's say it's Last Alliance, and you've got
Mhm.
your elves in one line and your Numenor in the other. I just picture an actual battle with their alliance, and like that they wouldn't armies wouldn't fight
Literally
that way and
intermixed.
like
Yeah.
ally be their second rank, it's just it's
Mhm.
never going to happen. And so like that gets to me. You could have a thematic army build and play it in a way that is just going for the rules and the points or the whatever is going to help you in the game, and not
Mhm.
in what's realistic. And so I'm not after recreating moments, but I am after realistic in both the army build and the gameplay. Do you have any pet peeves similar to that, or what are your thoughts on how you construct armies, keeping that realisticness in mind?
Um, I don't think I actually have that many pet peeves. I'll give a lot of people a lot of hard time for like doing a Mouth of Sauron, a Durbers, a Muhud King, and a Spider Queen. Like four completely different armies that aren't even remotely close to each other. But I actually don't mind that so much because it is kind of different. It is kind of fun. And it's cool to see how other people's brains work because they see something that you didn't and are trying to implement it. So I enjoyed that part of it. So I don't actually hate a lot of armies too much. I think I hate certain profiles, like, well, that's annoying. But that even then, like, there's ways around it, and there's ways of I'm more of a, well, I'm going to make this work kind of thing. So when I'm picking an army, I'm usually probably doing a pure army. A lot of people say, well, if you want to be competitive, you need to fill the gaps. To unless your army's like Gondor, where it can fill the gaps all on its own in their mind. Um, that if you're playing something like Khazad Doom, where you lack mobility and spears, you need to ally with an army that has mobility and spears, and that I disagree with. Like if you have an idea of doing that, that's great, but to say you can't win unless you do that bugs me, because I think one of the biggest things you can do when I build a list is you double down on whatever your strength is. So, for instance, Khazad Doom. What do they do well? Well, they tank some hits, they slowly move across the board, and they kill everything they win a fight against. So there you go. Double down on that. How can I maximize my wins within the army? Well, King's Champion is one of the most cost-effective ways of doing that. Gives 2 banners. 2 banners is great, spread out throughout your whole battle line. And then you just double down on your killing power. Like, yeah, I'm not going to win every fight, but when ones I do win, I'm definitely going to kill. And so that usually has a fun way of doing it. So I'll actually go pretty elite heavy on my Khazad Doom. I don't really take many like bows, because I find it doesn't really work in how I want to move my army in particular. It might work for other people, but how I move my army, I'm pretty aggressive. I'm trying to get to where I'm trying to go. And usually my own models are in the way, and I'm good, and I can't really move and shoot very well anyways. So I'll probably not take bows in most of my Khazad Doom list, but I'll double down on the elites. Like, okay, yeah, it's 15 points for an iron guard, but you get 2 attacks, throwing axe, and that's pretty good. It's all about winning the fights, right? So 2 attacks is pretty good. And then you pair that with a Hearth Guard, and if you can get 2-on-1s or whatever, Iron Guard and Hearth Guard together, they'll probably win the fight now because you're rolling 3 dice plus a banner, and then definitely for sure you're going to kill whatever you touch. So that's it. You're just trying to find out, like, how can I make this work? What is it good at? And kind of like double down on that a little bit. Knowing your weaknesses is also really well. So you know you're lacking mobility. So rather than, for me, okay, well, I have to take a march it's probably very helpful. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think you have to, because a lot of times your captains can only be in one place. If you're playing like an objective, it can be very useful. Don't get me wrong. I'll probably take a captain or a king anyways, because I do find it very helpful. But if you know your weakness is trying to get somewhere, just start planning ahead earlier. So like, I don't think I need to ally in, a 3 might hero with March and a couple of cav units that can run all over the place to make the Cows of Doom work. I think I'll just start planning ahead of the game, because you get a certain rhythm of the game, and you're like, okay, I know that my strengths are my 2 dudes are worth like 4 of your dudes, so I'm gonna put that against it. I'm gonna put my 2 guys against your 4, and I'm gonna send my other 2 guys towards where they need to be going. And it does work, and people get frustrated. Especially, it's kind of funny because they're like, oh yeah, I'm outnumbering you 2-1, and then they'll start bouncing off dwarves, and they're like, oh, that's a little frustrating, and you're kind of working your way through it. But yeah, it definitely has weaknesses, so it's just good to know those weaknesses and kind of try to build your list as best you can. Like fell beings, there's a couple of things I always include in the fell beings list. A drum is one of them. I was talking about this earlier. I think that's one of the biggest hidden gems about fell beings is that they can take a drum. A drum and a taskmaster, if you have enough points to fit it, you can get marches plus a drum, and your orcs are moving 12 inches in a turn. And then a lot of times that's free, because your taskmaster gets a 50-50 getting the march free, and your drum is always free. So it's huge to spend no resources whatsoever and have your orc battle line, which you thought you were in a position to just shoot it to death, is now directly in your face with a bunch of spiders that are outflanking you, and suddenly you're out of position. So that's a lot of things. So you kind of just double down on your strength. So like for fell beings, for me, it's mobility, and I will outmaneuver everybody on the board with fell beings. I'm going to play to that strength, and I'm going to try to use that to the best of my advantages. So that's kind of where I'm going with list building, is just know your weaknesses, know your strengths, and just do the best you can on limiting your weaknesses, but double down on your strengths.
I like that method so much more than every list I make has to be balanced. It has to have a little bit of cav. It has to have a big hitter. It has to have spears. It has to have archery. And I mean, then you end up with the same list in every faction, and there's no variety in that.
And not to say that it can't do well. Like, obviously, you'll probably be more consistent with a well-balanced list. Like, you won't win crazy games, and you won't lose crazy games. There's ways about it. Like, if you look at my list, I'll probably include, if I can have the option of a fast-moving model, I will probably throw a 1 in or 2, just because it is very helpful. Yeah. But if you don't have access to it, there's ways of getting it without, like, I must ally in something fast. Like, okay, like for instance, elves. Elves cav units, while they're great, they're very expensive, especially at low points, and you're giving up basically 2 elves, which is huge. So a lot of times what you can do, and I know this is kind of controversial, but you can do your 2 elves. Most lists have a sentinel built in, so that's I was talking about expensive units. A sentinel is very expensive, but most lists have it anyway. So what I'm talking about is a sentinel plus a cav unit. Like, you're losing out on a lot of models with that. Yeah. But a sentinel kind of pseudo does your cav in reverse, where it's not that you don't have mobility over the guy, but you can maneuver your opponent's army to where it looks like you have the mobility. So if they've got somebody trying to flank you, you can obviously try to pull it back in. Or if you need to flank something, you can usually try to move a model out of the way, so then you have the flank, whatever it is. So there's ways around it in options usually. And it's just finding that.
Yeah, it's good. Something I've noticed about some of your armies that you've shared on your show or been a guest on is just the lack of bows and your willingness to go with a strength that's not going to sit back and just take shots, but so you're not wasting points on
it's
models that are archery when you're not going to be spending your time.
Yeah, it's definitely it's bitten me because I'll have no bows, and I have found I'm always forced to go to my opponent, which I usually like it because 90% of this game I feel like is positioning. So sitting back and shooting it kills me because a lot of times it never does anything for me. It might kill a few models, but now they're completely blocking you off, especially in a time game. If it's not timed, absolutely. Like I'll kite a little bit and I'll shoot, but most of the games I play are timed. And so once I have this wall that I now have to get through most of the time to get what I need to do, it's very difficult. So I like being the oppressor. I like getting in your face. I like flanking. I like setting up my wall, like Condish Chariots. That's the best example I can give. And that comes ironically with 20-some bows. But I'm in your face. I'm pressing up against you. Yeah, is it the strongest army? No, it's a D4 army. But you still have to win fights, and you still have to kill me, and then you have to move through me in order to win the game. And that's where a lot of people hit a brick wall because they find that, they can't do it as fast as they think they can. But in some armies I'll take bows, but most of the time it doesn't go with how I'm trying to play the game. And everybody says honesty bows, and I get that. A couple of honesty bows do usually pay off. Like you'll snipe a hero's horse, that's pretty big. It's I don't know. I'd rather have something that helps me get up in front, start flanking, and start getting into position, the position I want to be. And bows usually I feel like I'm out of position whenever I'm trying to use them. But I did play Lothlorien, and I had 16 bows in that 1,000 points. So it's fun to like maneuver and then stop and then just fire 16 strength 3 bows and then maneuver again. It worked out pretty good too. So I'm never completely against it, but I do tend to not have that many.
Yeah. I love the thought that you put into it, though. Is this what is going to help my army the most, and is it really worth taking? I think that's the sort of thinking that, bring variety to the armies that we see, and is going to be something that, helps overall to bring a diverse set of armies, which is good for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It also goes with play style. If your play style is sit back and shoot, that makes complete sense to me. And I think that's why Rohan throwing spears match me so well, is because it's definitely I'm going to move up and now I'm going to stop and just pepper you, but I'm still moving.
Yep.
And that works pretty well.
Yeah, definitely. So do you have an army list for us that if you'd start off right before you even share the models, what is it about this list that's maybe not thematic, but realistic or a conversation of, this is something that, I don't feel like a jerk for bringing, and I'm not just going for the rules, but would you choose one of your lists that you brought today and tell us about it?
Let's see, let's pick one. I do like, I'm spreading right now the Gospel of Fell Beings of Mirkwood, the Legendary Legion. And I played this one at Adepticon, and I played it quite a lot this year, actually, in tournaments. I played it at Portland tournament, the 2-dayer back in February. I played it at LVO, which is in Vegas. And I played it at another Seattle event, and then I played it at Adepticon, which is in Chicago. And the Adepticon one was my favorite version of it, which is also my latest version, excuse me. That was 850 points. And I finally felt like at 850, I had everything that I wanted without not knowing what to fill. Because there's a certain points limit where you're just adding captains or troops and you're not really adding much to it. But at 850, it was perfect. And I don't think I've dialed it in any better, which it has all the tricks you want, a couple of bats, 8 spiders, the Spider Queen, all the hatred orc hatred elf you could want throughout the whole army, the orcs, the woodland creature, the drums, the marches, the taskmaster, for all the free might. It was just it works. So there's so many synergies within that it works. And it's funny because I had other people point this out to me that played against me, which they also kind of wrote it off, and they're like, this is what Fell Beings is. It's on paper, on the Legendary Legion, there's not that many special rules, so that's why it doesn't look that fancy. it's all the special rules that are built into the profiles that you didn't realize are bonuses, but they are. So like, for instance, the Spider Queen leading orcs. That's a huge one. Spider Queen almost it can't lead any troops other than spiders and bats and whatnot, and that's why all the alliances look that way and wargs. But a Spider Queen leading a couple of spiders and then a battle line of orcs, huge, filling out a warband space of 15. That's huge. So that's built into the Legendary Legion without even knowing it. Having a Taskmaster that can now whip the Spider Queen, because normally it's only within your army list, so it's Taskmasters in Mordor. But now when it's part of the Legendary Legion, it's part of that army list. So you can whip the Spider Queen so she can call free heroic moves, which is huge because Spider Queen needs her might as much as possible. Calling free marches potentially on himself. Plus, I have a captain in there too. So the captains, so I'm calling double marches or, double moves. And I'm, there's at any game at 850, I was getting like 6 to 8 Taskmaster rolls. And so if you do the 50-50, I was getting 3 to 4 might free. At Adepticon, I think I counted it up. I tallied up. I had 15 free might points over 5 games. So I was averaging 3 a game on average. Yeah. There was some games where I got 5, some games where I got 2. On average, it's about 3. And that's about right, 3 to 4 free points of might. But that's still huge. So on this list, I have, as my heroes, I have Razgush. I love Razgush. I think he's pretty baller. He's quite fun. I didn't get to play against an elf hero. Actually, I didn't play against any elves during the GT. But that's okay. I did play in lots of woods, and the woods came in handy for the Legendary Legion. But I did bring Razgush in the doubles, and I did fight Gilgalad, and I one-punched Gilgalad with Razgush. So that was quite fun. I have a Spider Queen. I have an Orc Captain with a shield, an Orc Shaman, and then the Orc Taskmaster. There's a total of 44 models. It's got four Mirkwood spiders, 4 giant spiders, 2 bat swarms, one tracker, a couple of warg riders. I think I have 4 in total. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. And then I have the rest is orcs with either spears or shields, and a banner's in there as well, and a drummer. So it's got everything. And that's, like I was talking earlier, you can do your drum, which is a 12-inch auto free for all your orcs. Does not work on the spiders or bats. So it's not like you declare drum and your opponent can just move willy-nilly. He still has to be careful because you still have a Spider Queen that's unaffected by it, and all your spiders and bats, and they can easily pounce on something. So they're still careful, but you're still fast-moving orcs. You can call a march on top.
Positive.
Exactly, yeah. You can call a march if you want to, but again, you're not hindered by the fact that you're forced to charge at that point, because if they get themselves out of position, you just don't declare the march right off the bat. You can charge with everything to take advantage of their missed position, and then you can do your drum and march to get everybody else into position. So that's a huge perk as well. The bats obviously is a great combo, pairing with either Razgush or the Spider Queen, or just picking off certain things. The Shaman is probably the thing I hate the most about the list, but he is absolutely vital because there's so much terror in the game, and they are just orcs and bats, and the Shaman doesn't affect the spiders or the bats or anything, but you have to have some models that can just charge when you need to not worry about the terror. Plus, I had a game at Adepticon where it was Razgush, the Shaman, and like maybe 5 or 6 orcs left because it was recon. Or no, it wasn't recon, it was Seize the Prize. So my bats and Spider Queen were trying to get the prize off, and he had just destroyed me on my battle line. But it was just, okay, keep Razgush alive. And the best way to do that was auto pass courage with Razgush. I had my Shaman and Razgush, and then a little couple ragtag team of orcs body blocking and keeping them alive, and that's how I won the game. Shaman just, I didn't even have to take courage checks for all those guys. They were just always there. They were always there. So he's kind of important. But yeah, that's the list. Spider Queen does spider things. Bats do bats thing. I think the hidden gem on that list, other than the Taskmaster, the Drum, is the Mirkwood Spiders. And I'm such a fan of Mirkwood Spiders because, Bjornings are quite popular. They're fight 5, anything 2 attacks, strength 4 with +1 to wound, like anything they hit, they kill. Doesn't matter if they auto lose fights. On a 5+, they're paralyzed and they automatically lose a fight. So it's really fun just to sit up on top of a building and just pepper heroes, 1 fate heroes, with paralyze, which goes off a lot more often than you think, or just doing a charge and you're paralyzed, you're down on the ground, you auto lose, and I'm a strength 5, doubling and re-rolling 1s. So quite fun.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Yep. Doesn't matter if it's a 5+ if you just keep rolling it.
Exactly.
You're gonna get it.
Yeah. It failed quite a lot. But it's still 33% chance is 33% chance, and it usually comes at when they don't want it the most. So, and when you have 4 shots, 4 every single time, maybe one of them hits a turn, right? If you're playing the odds, one spider web a turn, that still is pretty brutal when you're hitting stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. That's seems to fit your oppressive desire play style.
Yeah, you're noticing that I'm leaning towards Con, which is chariots. I'm going to run over you. I'm playing fell beings. I'm going to run at you. Playing dwarves. I'm going to chop through you. Yes, you're definitely finding my play style.
And we haven't even mentioned Easterlings, War Drum, Pikes, and then your new favorite Acolytes, and that's oppressive in its own way.
I do like that. I won the Tacoma GT with Easterlings, so I was happy, and I did fairly well last year with the Easterlings at the biggest event on the West Coast, which is the Clash on the Coast. That's up in BC. But it's funny what you were saying. You kind of lean against something that's unrealistic, like. You're not going to have dwarves up front and spears or elves behind them supporting it. Like that's not going to happen. And you're not going to have Numenorians, and elves, intermixing. I lean away from things that are overly popular. So I was a huge Easterling, guy, champion, herald, everything like that. And then the new rules dropped, and I bought everything, and I love it. It was fun to play, but I'm getting a lot of looks of, oh, you're that guy, and I'm like, well, I don't want to be that guy. So I still play it. It does very well. I'm very happy with it. But I kind of lean away from it.
Yeah, that's fair. I have accepted as canon Rutabi and Brorgir and the Acolytes, and I can take them without feeling evil or mean. But
perfect.
Yeah. When beyond that, the emperor who should not be named with his overpowered nonsense. It's like, oh man, I want my elves to retain their specialness, and it feels like he's robbing them more than anybody else. And so, I just don't love that.
Yeah, it's a complicated debate because I hear what you're saying, and I get that. I do. He's not the only one that does that though, so it's hard for me to get mad at him specifically for it because Boromir does it. Even Bard kind of does it, and, a bunch of other people do it. The +1 fight and everything. So
sure.
There's lots of ways of getting fight 5 battle lines now. So I completely understand that argument. But I think he does what he does well, and it basically did what everybody wanted it to. It brought Easterlings towards one of the best lists, and I don't think it's overpowered because I don't see it beating everything, but it definitely is really, really good.
Mm-hmm. Fight 5 is the new Fight 4, which oddly enough I think helps goblins out because you get a big fight 2. You just give up the fight value and say, I'm going to stack 2 or 3 guys on you every single time. And
absolutely.
Let's roll with that.
Absolutely.
That's Jurassic Park. Life finds a way. Even goblins find a way somehow.
Yes.
The irony of it all. It's good. I'm going to share a list that Ian from Into the West submitted through Facebook. And I'm curious if you've ever faced this or a similar version of what he mentioned. So he didn't have the exact list because it's been a few years. But the list is a cool alliance. And so it's Glorfindel and Kirdon, and
Okay.
about 8 to 10 elves.
Okay.
And with any guesses who they're allied with?
Arnor.
Yeah, there you go. So Arvidui, Malbeth, and a captain, and about 26 warriors or rangers. Take your pick. A banner in the Arnor crew. 800 points. What are your thoughts on that list?
I actually love it. I love it on many reasons. I love it because it's very good. I love it. Did you say it had Malbeth?
Yep.
Okay, Malbeth. Good. I love it. It's very thematic. Because Glorfindel and Círdan were prevalent during Arnor, and they were there for the battles and stuff like that. So love it. So I love it on a theme perspective. I love it on a competitive play because it's got quite a lot of tricks. Because Glorfindel's no slouch. You make up for the fact that Arvidui loses his army bonus because you have Círdan, who gives fearless anyways. So that's always good. And you get blinding light and you get enchanted blades, so that's great. You get Malbeth with his save, so it's very solid. It's very, very tough to crack. I have played this quite a lot. Not specifically Ian, but I played. So there's a local Brian. He plays this, and then I've also played Max, who's also up in Canada. He plays this, and it's very solid and very good.
It's my favorite kind of thematic in that it takes hints from a sentence in the lore and expands on it. What Star Wars did when they added the latest trilogy, it's a rerun. We've got the Millennium Falcon taking on the Empire's giant planet destroying orb and blowing it up. Okay, that's the third time we've seen that. It's not meant to recreate something. It's meant to expand that universe and give more limelight to something that's plausible, that works, and it's a competitive list while it's doing that. That's, I think, a sweet spot, and I really love that. And he found some cool synergy there where weakness of one army, it's overshadowed, or it's not overshadowed, it's complemented and corrected by the strength of your ally. I mean, that's a best case scenario.
That is. It's very good.
Yeah.
I like that one a lot.
So here's a basic army that I came up with because I got my only dwarfs were a small group that were secondhand. I didn't even get a full box set. It's like, okay, that's going to be tough to build anything with. So I had to ally, and then you'll see what I allied with it here. So it's a 500-point list. And it's a dwarf king with throwing axes, and the King of Valor thing the Hero of Valor thing is what made this list work. We've got 5 dwarves with bow, 5 with shield, 1 has a banner, 5 has a guard. So there's your 15. It's easy 5s, max bows, easy, and that's exactly 250. And then you've got Gwahir and a giant eagle, and so it's like. Yeah. The crazy thing is that even would have accidentally I realized, oh wow, that would have worked at the doubles tournament in Portland because it has to be 2 250-point armies allying in. Yeah. But there's no freaking way I'm going to a tournament with 2 eagles and expecting to not just be crushed and disappointed except all but 2 moments in the day. It's not fun for me. That would be so stressful.
Yeah. It can be very fun. It can be good. I've seen Eagles played masterfully and just absolutely wreck. But they're very, very tough to play. And if you're traveling a long ways for an event that you kind of want to make it worth your while,
exactly.
But yeah, no, I completely understand.
And some of those doubles scenarios, it's a 50-50 roll-off. You're front and center within 6 inches. It's guaranteed. And half the scenarios we're playing, you could get charged first turn. And so it's that's a nightmare for Eagles right there of that setup. They'd love to be the one coming in to support, but you don't have control over which one you're going to be. So that was not going to be worth it. But yeah, I had just enough dwarves to pull off that list. And then I got the giant Eagles set of 2 and called one of them Gwahir, and I was off and flying. And so that was a fun little accidental, just pulled it off little list that was thematic. I love the generic profiles for theme too. I mean, sticking a generic do a list, I think makes it more thematic, because how often in the size of armies we see on the tabletop are you going to have all the big name people in a kingdom in this one little section with that small of a group? I think it's more thematic to have Gil-galad and only captains, or just be light on it. I'm not saying that that's what should happen most of the time, but I think it's a cool thematic choice to include some more of those generic characters, because then you can fill it in yourself too. And I just have a lot of fun with adding your own story to it, of like, well, I've got to give this dwarf king a name, and all of a sudden you're creating a story, and he gains some character traits over the course of a day through his big flop in combats or whatever it is, his skill with throwing axe.
Yep.
I love the game.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely agree. It's way fun to include these profiles that are not just a cookie cutter copy paste, right? It's fun to mix them in. Yeah. I'm a huge fan of the King of Men from Gondor. I want to play them more often as I can, because they're super fun to play with.
Yeah, totally. Okay, do you have one more list you could share with us?
I've got lots of lists. I get.
Did you do the Lothlorien one? I'm since I play Lothlorien about 10 times more often than Khazad-dûm, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that one.
So this is the one directly for my 1,000 points. This, you're gonna have everything, so it's kind of nice. Well, actually, not everything, but you're gonna have a lot. So the gist of it is, it's Galadriel, it's Celeborn full kit, it's Haldir full kit, and not the Elven Cloak, so I guess not full kit, but heavy armor and bow, and then you have Orphan. And I went Orphan instead of Rumil. That was the first question I kept getting. Why Orphan? Orphan's amazing. Orphan's amazing. Three attacks. 3 attacks plus the enchanted blades from Celeborn makes him very, very, very hard hitting. Fight 6, amazing. Rumil is great. Don't get me wrong. I will sing Rumil's praises. I have found that you throw him into a Balrog, it's just unfair. It's so unfair. What I've also found is he's only 2 attacks. So I can make you re-roll one, but if I only roll a 3 high or whatever, it doesn't really matter. I'm gonna die. Yeah. Yep. So so I went with Orphan instead. And it had 2 knights. It had 3 sentinels. I really like my sentinels. They're really fun. It had 8 guards of the Galadrim court, and then it had, I want to say, like 14 elves with shield, and let's see, 3, 5, 7. Plus 4, so 11 wood elves with spear and bow. So it's 47 models in total. And it's a lot of fun. I find that the Sentinels are amazing. Ironically, at 1,000 points, you find a lot of high courage armies. So they didn't pay off much as far as like moving models, but what they did pay off. And I find that actually the auto pass courage is amazing. Like, this thing's causes terror. I really need you to charge, and I don't want to give up one of my expensive elves doing nothing, because I always fail high courage checks. I don't know why that is, but I'll have courage 5 models and they'll fail 50% of them. And I'm like, I don't know what to do.
It hurts.
So so it's really nice to be like, you're going to charge no matter what. Mm-hmm. So that's been great. And I think Galadriel's awesome, especially in a veto system. There's you're 1 in 18 to pick contest, but just having the veto, and you're like, I don't have to worry about even trying to pull off a contest, pull something way out. You don't even have to worry about it. That's great. And I think Celeborn's awesome. Celeborn's just so reliable with his spells are awesome. The double immobilizes, catches a lot of people off guard, and just a 3 attack Lord of the West, just consistently chopping. Most of the time he's fainting too, because he's got a fight 6 pike support behind him. So it works out great.
Yeah, it's good. I've been too scared to run Galadriel in the last couple of years. I haven't tried in the last couple of years because I'm not necessarily worried about running a contest at. Man, Saruman is my quintessential perfect spellcaster, because the reliability of casting on a 2+ with a reroll that was free. I mean, I can't get over that. I can't. So it's like, oh, I'm compelling on a 4+, and I have to spend one of my will if I'm going to get 2 dice at like that. Just my comparison point Saruman, which is totally unfair. But man, and then So how do I use Galadriel better? How do I? What are your go-to uses as Galadriel to get your points back and not necessarily get your points back, but just make it worth it?
Well, one of the best things about Galadriel, why a lot of people take her, is it only costs you $130 for a really good spellcaster. She doesn't have a lot of spells, but that's okay when you only need the 3 basics anyways, which and those are the only ones you use: Immobilize, Command, and Blinding Light. And it's, she mobilizes on a 3+, which is pretty good, especially since she gets free will every turn, and you can't shatter her staff, so there's no way of making that go away. She's 130 points, very, very cheap on your army, and she leads 18 troops. These are all big perks for her. And one of the best things I think she does is she stands behind your battle line and is always in position for your heroic moves. So, it's always hard to you get a heroic move, but usually it's a hero that's up in front and it's easy for them to win the roll, get tagged, everything like that. Or maybe he doesn't get everywhere you want to, but she just plops, okay, here's my 2 guys that I really need to move. I'll plop right in the middle of them. I'll throw my spells over the back line. I'll throw up a Blinding Light if you have something stupid like a trebuchet, a siege weapon, or just a bunch of bows. I'll throw that up and defend against that, but I'll call my heroic moves reliably, and I'll just annoy you because your best hero is going to be challenged every single turn by a caster who is never going to be at risk of being charged. So you can't just stop her spells. The spells are coming because you usually body block her pretty well. And if by some miracle she is charged, she's probably not going to die because 3 wounds, 3 fate, even though it's D3, very, very hard to kill Galadriel, especially since she has heroic defense if you really need to.
And re-rolling fate rolls as well. And so, I mean, you get a lot of chances to nullify those wounds.
Absolutely.
I hadn't thought of the combo. I mean, what I love about Lothlorien is holding the line. It's just not letting my opponent get through. And that's what I do best with it. And so that combo of a competent spell with caster protected behind that line, just holding up the enemy. I like that combo and hadn't seen that fully. So I'm excited to give that a try.
Yeah, because what you're saying is like the 2+ spell going off, re-rolling. That's great. But she does what she needs to. So like she'll dump, like, let's say you see Aragorn, King of Lesar, very, very scary guy. 3 will. You drop 3 will of your own, you get the 6. He's got to burn probably all 3 of the will. Maybe he gets a 6 and gets a will point back, but he probably loses at least 2, if not all 3 will points, trying to block it because you're denying his best hero, 240 point model. Then the next turn, same thing. I'm just going to drop 3 will on you. You probably won't resist the second turn. After that, you're out of will. Now I can reliably probably drop 1 to 2 will per turn if you want to make sure it goes off. So until she's completely out of her base will, but even still, it's a 3+, and you have nothing to resist it. And I've just shut down your best model, and all while I'm not being worried about being charged because she sits back there. She calls her heroic moves. Battle line moves forward. She extends out 12 inches with her spells, dropping things over the top, and you're all good.
There's almost no leaders that I'd rather spend might on a heroic move with than Galadriel. That's it just makes sense to do that.
Pretty good.
All right, you've got me thinking. I'm gonna try some stuff in the coming weeks. That's good.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. So here's an Isengard list. They're in my top 4 favorite factions for sure.
Very reliable.
About pikes apparently. Drums that would just like get me going. Didn't even realize it. I thought it was more. That's what ended up being my favorite factions. It's like, oh, they all have the pike factions. Okay, that's cool. And so usually I spend half my points on heroes, roughly, somewhere around a 50%. And I don't usually max out warband space. part of it's just the points I'm playing at and the models that I own. But I went for a 500 point Isengard list, and I exactly maxed out the warband slots and came up with something. This is Daniel's version of oppressive. This is this is my oppressive list. So let me pull it out here. We've got looks like I'm memory because that's not the right paper. So we've got Lurtz as the leader, and he's got his shield because why not?
Yep.
And then maxed out his war bands, and I went with the heavy Urukai. I love the high defense. I love the pikes. So 7 of each. 7 with shield, 7 with pike, and then one of them's got and then a war. Then the Urukai drummer is in there.
There you go.
Well.
And
One of the shields. Exactly. One of the shield guys has a banner as well.
Perfect.
And then the guy with the hair, Maher, is leading 8 marauders with bow. So it's like, let's go crazy. That's you're not afraid to have moves 4 inches. It comes in handy. 1 marauder with shield and banner. So a second banner at 500 points. 1 marauder with his rock fist in the air because he's got nothing else and there's no points left. And then 2 warg riders with shield and throwing spear. So you've got 8-inch move on that group of like 10 marauders. You've got 2 warg riders with throwing spears and the higher defense. You've got Lurtz with a war drum. So this group, this army loves Maelstrom. Yes. You stick Maher in first, and then you've got a drumming Lurtz wherever you want. Oh, yep. that's impressive.
Very fast.
It loves scenarios where the enemy shoot all day because you march drum and it's like 14 inches with Maher's group or something, and 12 inches really and then 15 inches. Like your slowest unit's like 12 inches that turn. It's ridiculous. And the drummer can usually get that whole group. It's I think it's 20. Is it 29 models because of the heroes? 12, 15 too. Yeah. So it's 29 models. It's got a great break point, a little bit higher model count than normal. Lurtz can handle being the leader at 500 points. You're going to be all right. And it's got the double banners too. And so watch out for that. And then you just let Maher just chop up stuff consistently. You take your time. You don't worry if he loses every once in a while. Just don't let him die. Fast. You play smart with Lurtz so you don't give up a leader wound. But man, I mean, you've got the 8 bows if you want them, when you need them.
It's nice.
And then you've got a few throwing spears in there too. I mean, that is just it's not a list I'd want to go up against with any army that I'm throwing out at 500 points.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. It's got the speed, it's got the shooting, it's got the tricks, it's got the special rules. I like it. 6 might marches. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. And Maher is a great choice.
Yeah. I'm a big, I don't care if you're giving something up to get a 3 attack hero like Orphan and Maher. It's worth 3 attacks is way better than 2. it's
pretty nice.
Way better.
Yes.
And so,
yes.
Yeah.
No, that's great. I like that list
a lot. I think Maher's only got 2, right? So you give up one of those, but it's.
Oh yeah. That's right.
That's
his downfall. Yeah.
It's so easy. That's one of my. Just making a stupid move with a banner is still something I don't play often enough to I'll forget oh nope, he's not in base contact with anybody and now they're shooting at him.
And now he's dead.
Those moves still just hamstring me every once in a while. So having a second banner can just it's a great comfort. And then I mean Maher's group doesn't have spears, and so that really helps compensate as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
When you're
reroll them. Yes. Yep. No, I like that a lot. That's pretty good. 29 models, 500 points. I like it. Thankful for being on, and thank you. Appreciate it. And let me just rant about something I probably know nothing about. So thank you.
Oh, thanks for joining. It was super enjoyable for me, and I think, the listeners will get something great out of it as well. So thank you so much, Mitchell.
Thank you.